He's the founder and creative director of the African Guru Academy. He's the convener of the skillstoGold platform, a public health professional, a trainer, a coach with a focus on business branding and skills monetization. This fine gentleman believes that you should be able to earn from whatever you enjoy doing and you're good at, and I agree. One of his favorite quotes is, building a legacy from your skills is the legacy. Please, let's make welcome to the virtual podium none other than our host, if I may say so, Abdul Hakim Abdul Karim. The lectern is yours. One more round of applause.
Good evening, distinguished ladies and gentlemen joining in from different parts of the world. This is the digital economy, and if you're not keen into it, then what are you really keen into? As rightly mentioned, I am really passionate about earning from that thing that gives you genuine sense of satisfaction. If you're good at it, you enjoy doing it, you can do it for free. Now imagine the efforts you're going to put into it if it's paying all the bills. Basically, that's the movement, that's the momentum, that's the goal, that's success. This year, we talked about helping people to actually achieve their goals. Don't just set goals and leave it at goals.
Now, before we progress, I just want to highlight that today's session is about checking our systems, adjusting what needs to be adjusted, and just basically ensuring that the second half of the year yields better, smarter results. With that said, now is time for the heartbeat of today's session. And to anchor this session is an amazing, beautiful...
What we have done so far in the last 6 months. We may overguess. And then also, if you don't take time to evaluate and have a progress review, you would not know what is working in your life. You would not know what is working well in your life if it's working well at all, the different segments and aspects of your life. And then also, one of the reasons that it's important that you do quarterly progress reports, quarterly taking stock of your life in different aspects of it, is that it helps you to better plan. It helps you to better plan. When you plan, you have a better chance at following through what you're planning, and you have a better chance at succeeding when you plan. And also, it enables you to stay on track. If you have a clear idea of the path that you want to thread upon, you are able to stay on track because you know when you go off track because you have an idea of where you're headed. So that's what a progress report, progress review will do. And also accountability. For those that are part of this academy, it's something that you do all the time. You have 6 months reports, reviews, you have 3 months reviews. For some, you might have monthly reviews. So the fact that you have somewhere where you are held accountable enables you to bring to focus. It enables you to bring to focus your goals. And then also, lastly, it helps you to detect delays. Procrastination can be our friend. Unfortunately, a lot of us procrastinate a lot, thinking that time will wait for you, but time waits for no one. So if you don't take the time to reflect back on what it is you've done so far, you might think that you are threading properly and you have all the time in the world. And if you don't pause to reflect, what tends to happen is that you end up wasting a lot of time not accomplishing those things that you need to. So next slide, please. So how do we measure this thing called progress? How do you measure progress? How do you measure progress? The starting point is KPI, key performance indicators. In this simplified way, it's you having a baseline for what it is that you're going to be comparing it with. Because when you don't have a baseline, what tends to happen is your reporting or your assessment will be flawed. Think of a medical doctor that is trying to assess if his or her patient has a fever. If it takes the thermostat and sticks the thermostat in the patient's mouth or under the armpit and just brings it out without having a baseline to reference, will that doctor know if the individual has a fever or not? Correct me if I'm wrong with the medical, if anyone that is a medical practitioner here, over 36.5 will be considered a fever. So you having that baseline, you have something to assess. So if that patient temperature is below 36.5, well, the patient doesn't have a fever. If the patient's temperature is above 36.5, voila, the patient has a fever. So basically, there are markers that you can use to guide. So that's, in a nutshell, in layman's term, what a KPI will do. A KPI will help assess against established goals and identify areas falling short of expectations. Looking at the selection of individuals that we have here, you have a variety of careers here. You'll have some of us that may be even stay-at-home moms. You have those that are entrepreneurs. You have those that work 9 to 5. How can you use KPI to assess your progress? Firstly, when you set a goal, you have to ensure that your goal is measurable, right? You have to ensure that your goal is measurable. That's the first thing. Making sure that your goal is specific enough. When you tend to have conversations with people, asking them about either their career or their business, and you delve further to find out what their goals are and what their desires are, you will hear phrases like this or statements like this: I want to be a successful entrepreneur. I want to be a successful designer, for instance. I want to be a successful web creator. Those terms, in terms of goals, are very vague. What do you mean by successful? Success varies from individuals and varies depending on the situation. So when you are looking at your goals in relation to your KPI, you have to be more specific. So rather than saying, for example, I want to be a successful designer, I want to be a successful tailor, you saying, I would like to be a successful tailor, for instance, and then going further, in 2025, within 6 months, I would like to have sold 100 boo-boos, for instance. So what are you doing there? You're being more specific as to what that goal is. You're being more specific as to what that goal is. And then taking it further, how attainable is that goal? It's one thing saying that you want to supply 100 boo-boos. Where do you want to supply those 100 boo-boos to? Is it going to be here in Abuja? Is it going to be in Lagos? Is it going to be internationally? As you can imagine, for every scenario, the requirement, it differs. And for every scenario, the resources that you will require differs. Supplying 100 boo-boos in Abuja will differ from you supplying 100 boo-boos in Lagos, or, for instance, supplying 100 boo-boos in Russia or in London if you want to do to the export market. It will differ. So it's very, very important that when you are setting your goals and measuring your goals, you're measuring them against your KPI, against some of these indicators that I have mentioned. And then also, when you're measuring your progress in the last 6 months, for instance, if you have had setbacks, why are they considered setbacks? Why have you considered those things setbacks? What have been the causes of those setbacks? Have you been able to sit down, reflect on them, and have you been able to pinpoint specifically what those setbacks have been and why they have occurred? You're able to do this by having feedbacks. For those that have businesses, for instance, have you been able to have, some sort of feedback sessions with your clients? Feedback forms. Have you taken time to look at the feedback forms from your clients? For those that work on their own, entrepreneurs, do you have accountability partners in your life whereby they're able to give you feedback with regards to certain things you have done in the last 6 months? So that when you're saying that you've had feedbacks, do you know specifically what those feedbacks are, what those setbacks are? When it comes to solving a problem, being able to identify the problem would ensure that you're able to progress in a significant manner when you're able to identify what those setbacks are. And then also criticism. A lot of us don't like criticism. But what I would like to suggest here is for you to look at criticism as a tool to encourage growth. When you receive criticism, take time to read it and take time to analyze what that criticism entails, and is there anything that you can learn from it? Rather than shutting down the criticism, can you take time to reflect upon it so you're able to know if you're able to derive any sort of lessons which will help propel your progress and growth even further? Move on to the next slide, please. Okay, so how do you measure progress? How do you measure progress? Taking inventories of what you have achieved thus far is cathartic and very important. Having a clear vision of where it is that you are headed, and then taking inventory as to how far you have gone. And when you're taking inventory, I would always say that it's very, very, very important that you are not too harsh on yourself. Understanding the fact that progress takes time. And I think Maria had put there unrealistic goals, making sure that your goals that you're setting are realistic enough and they are within your capabilities. That does not mean that your capabilities have to stay stagnant, but when you're projecting and when you're setting your goals, being aware of what you're capable of is crucial. Being aware of what you're capable of is crucial. And when you take inventory, when you're documenting, when you're internalizing, when you're reflecting, it enables you to do so. And ensuring that when you're doing this, you're doing them taking small, actionable goals. And the key with goals is ensuring that these goals are consistent. That's the magic. Consistency. Please, if you don't take anything out of today's session, one thing you should take out, please, is consistency. It's a superpower. All right, it's a superpower. One of my favorite quote by Bill Gates is that most people overestimate what they can do in a short period of time and underestimate what they can do in a long period of time. We underestimate what we can do when we have time. But because of culture, environment, peer pressure, you name it, the list is endless. We have that, there's that sense of urgency that you feel that you have to achieve it now. And when you're not achieving it now, you feel that you have failed. And that's not a realistic way of looking at progress. A realistic way of looking at progress is ensuring that whatever you're doing, do it consistently. For those that exercise, imagine if you want to start exercising, if one of your goals is a health goal. 2025, I want to improve my health by exercising better. By the end of 2026, you want to have 6 packs, you want to have, you set all sorts of goals that you want to do. So what do? Come January, you hit the gym. And you might be someone that has never hit the gym, or you hit the gym not regularly. And that first week, you want to start raising weights, you want to run a marathon, you want to go to the gym 5 times a week or 7 times a week. And what happens? You burn out. So you're overestimating what you can do in a short period of time. But another way of looking at progress, another way of attaining your goals is when you systematically take the time to break it down into small, actionable goals. You can start with going to the gym 3 times a week. Or better still, going to the gym twice a week, but ensuring that you're consistent with it. If you are having financial constraint and you can't afford to go to the gym, all right, so what I will do is I will start walking around my estate. I'll start walking around my house. 15 minutes a day. 15 minutes a day, I will do that 3 times a week. Small steps. But if you're consistent with it, what would happen? Those small actionable steps will lead to progress. So it's very, very important when you're measuring your progress that you ensure you're doing it in a very realistic manner. And all of these principles that I'm sharing are not things that you've never heard before. You've heard them before, but the key is ensuring that you're consistent with them and you're able to do them. And all of these things you can apply to your career, you can apply to your health, you can apply to your relationships, ensuring that you start with small, manageable, consistent goals. And then also reflecting on your achievements. Regular reviewing of an accomplishment and identifying what worked well can motivate continuous progress. Right? So these things are more, what are they now? When you are reviewing your achievements in the last 6 months, you're able to pinpoint those things. I perform optimally, even under pressure. When you're able to reflect on your achievements, you're able to categorically pinpoint what you have achieved. And what that does, it acts as an encouragement. All right? When you're able to pinpoint achievements, it releases dopamine into your brain, and it releases that feel-good factor, and it motivates you to do even more. So when you are reflecting upon your progress so far in the last 6 months, it's very, 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 very important that you're able to pinpoint on those things. Very important that you're able to you're able to pinpoint on those things. Very important. So next slide, please. All right. So when it comes to the last 6 months, what are the clear results that show that you are progressing? What are the clear results? Like I just mentioned, being decisive and being specific will ensure that you're able to ensure that you know what this progress that you have achieved so far. But what I will always start with when looking at progress, I would say, have you been able to cultivate healthier habits? Have you been able, that's the starting point. Have you been able to cultivate healthy habits? Because in achieving any sort of goal, you need to be physically sound, mentally, emotionally, spiritually sound. Because if you're not healthy, you can have 1,000 goals. Guess what? Do you think you'll be able to achieve them if you're not healthy? No. What tends to happen then is that your main priority will be your health. You'll forget any other goals that you have. Whatever it is you want to 10x will be out the window if you're not healthy. So ensuring that your body is healthy is crucial to you being able to achieve your goals moving forward. Being mindful of what it is you put into your body. In terms of your food, what are you eating? Realizing that food is medicine. Whatever you're eating, is it going to nourish your body is key. Irrespective of inflation around the world, being able to eat good food, a lot of the time isn't very expensive. It's more you being knowledgeable, knowing what your body requires. Sleep. Are you able to sleep? Are you able to rest? When you're able to rest, you have your ability to assess and be clear on your goals becomes even better. Self-awareness. Self-awareness. How aware are you about your needs? How aware are you about your needs? Knowing what you want, understanding your boundaries. And then also your emotional well-being, being able to bounce back from setbacks and not dwell in the past indicates emotional maturity. And these are things that you need to have when you are assessing your progress. Because guess what? You will have setbacks. Be it in your career, be it in your relationships, be it in your spirituality, whatever it is, you will have setbacks. And your ability to bounce back from them would show how much progress you have made. And then lastly on this, skill development. Acquiring new skills and developing existing ones demonstrates your commitment to grow. In the last 6 months, have there been any skills that you require? I know Maria said learning, for example, learning a language. What active steps have you taken? What active steps have you taken to accomplish this? Have you registered for an app? Are you attending classes? Are you watching YouTube videos? Are you friends with someone that speaks the language so that whenever you speak to that person, you're engaging them? What have you done? Doesn't matter how small, but have you taken any step towards that? I gave the example of the tailor that wants to produce 100 boo-boos. So imagine if his goal for 2025 is to increase his capacity from 100 to 1,000. The skill set that he needs, does he have it? In order for him to maximize his production, he needs to acquire an equipment. And that equipment, he needs to know how to work it. Has he taken the time to find out how to work it? Has he taken the time to learn, to acquire the skill that would expand and ensure that he's able to progress? Like I said, this applies to any area that you find yourself in. What skill set do you require in 2025 to ensure that you have the competency required to achieve your goals? Have you started embarking upon them? If you haven't started, it's not too late. You have 6 more months to go. What's stopping you? The next slide, please. All right. So we've looked at so far how we go about with the progress and assessing the progress. So what if as most of you are, you've done 6 months and you might need to have adjustments. So what are the strategic adjustments that you need to do? These are some of the questions that I will need you to ask yourself. How often were plans revisited and reviewed over the last 6 months? How often? That plan that you have for your career, for your relationships, for spiritual growth, for acquiring a new skill, whatever it is, have you revisited that plan? Or did you write that plan in 2024, wrote it down and you're excited about it, and in the last 6 months, you have not gone back to it? In the last 6 months, you have not gone back to it. Or how often do you go back to it? Remember, what you focus on grows. What you focus on will grow. That's what Roy Bennett says. What you focus on will grow. So are you focusing on these things? And how often do you go back to look at the goals that you set in the last 6 months? What competency do you require to achieve them? What competency do you require to achieve them? In some of these things that you've listed in the chat, what competency do you require? What competency? And then also performance assessment. In what area do I need to improve on? One thing that I believe in strongly, I believe in accountability partners. It's something that has worked for me over the years. I have a friend of mine, this is in terms of my own personal accountability. Whenever I need to do something that I know that I am procrastinating on and I'm struggling on, I will call on, there's a particular friend of mine, Grace, I will call upon her. And I will tell her exactly what it is I want to achieve. We'll take time, set out the goals, and then make sure we have time frames, and those goals are very specific. And with her, what we tend to do is we will do a check-in every day or every other day. I will send videos or I will send pictures. I will send something tangible to show her that I have done what I said I will do. And in the instances where I don't do it, she will find me 5,000 naira. I remember we started this 5 years ago. We started at 5,000 naira. So you can imagine, when I think of transferring 5,000 naira to my friend, I'm like, oh my goodness, that in itself will spur me to try. Over the years, she has refused, she has more or less renegotiated that from 5,000 to 10,000 naira, whereby when I fail to meet up a particular goal or to remain accountable to her, I have to transfer that money to her. I have to transfer that money to her. And apart from transferring the money to her, what we'll then do is to sit down and explain why it is I was not able to achieve those goals. So having an accountability partner is crucial. It's very, very good when it comes to strategic adjustments. And then also, don't be too hard on your goals. Be clear about them, be consistent with them, but be adaptable. All right, be adaptable. How do you modify your strategies? Are there difficulties that you're facing? Are there difficulties that you're facing? One quote by Albert Einstein I love is that insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. That's one mantra I live by that always recenters me. Insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So are you doing the same thing over and over and over again without making adjustments, without tweaking it? If that thing is giving a result that you don't want, you have to sit back, take time, assess, reflect, and see how you can modify it. Because when you are able to do any sort of modification at times, then, eureka, you're able to gain success in what may seem an area that you may have been failing in the past. And lastly, adopting a growth mindset. Adopting a growth mindset means that you're open to learning. So within the next 6 months, making sure that you're open to learning, making sure that you're open to reflecting, making sure that you're open to making changes where required. Adopting a growth mindset. Doing all these things will enable you to adjust the goals that you have set so far to ensure that these goals are more realistic goals. Can I have the last slide, please? There's a wonderful adage that I love. It's an Igbo adage that says, whenever you wake up, that is your morning. Whenever you wake up, that is your morning. We are all different. Each and every one of you, everyone here is different in terms of their goals, their aspirations, and the methods and manner in which they go about it. Everyone is different. But having clarity of mind, having clear, specified, actionable, time-bound goals would ensure that whenever it is that you do wake up, whenever it is it's your morning, you're able to step into it and be consistent with it. Because when you're consistent with it, what would eventually happen is that growth and progress would eventually occur. So I'll hand back over to the moderator.
Please, a very warm round, a rousing applause. I mean, this is really good. I don't know about you, but I've been writing that I almost forgot to check the time while she was speaking. Powerful insights, Toju. And I'm certain everyone here has picked up several nuggets that we would take home, and we know it's worth their weight in gold. And I mean this literally and figuratively when we're talking about skills to gold, right? Thank you so much for sharing your insights on that. Now, because we started like 10 minutes late, so I'm going to crave everyone's indulgence that please let's run this for another 10 minutes so we can take the Q&A, feedback, and then we get Abdul Hakim to come wrap up. So at this juncture, I'm going to ask anyone with burning questions. You've heard her talk about a lot of things. I mean, I took out key things like eating right and sleeping right and having self-awareness and emotional maturity actually impacts on how you go about achieving your goals. You won't think about it that way when you think about food, but I mean, that was really deep. So thanks for sharing. Does anyone have any questions? Do we have any in the chat box? I don't see any here, but there is feedback for you to do. It says you outdid yourself. Well done. This is from Theresa Mwachuku. Thanks, Theresa, for that feedback. I'm sure Oh, yeah. So Maria says how to prevent burning out.
Thanks, Maria, for that question. How to prevent burnout? I would say balance. All right, balance. A lot of the time we strive for perfectionism. And what I've learned to understand is sometimes good is enough. Good is enough. So understanding, Maria, what your boundaries are, knowing what your limitations are, and learning to say no. Learning to say no. A lot of us struggle with the ability to say no, but knowing that when you're saying no to something is saying yes to another. So you're able to prioritize better. Because if you don't, what would eventually happen, like you've said, is you will burn out. So learning to say no when you need to say no, and then also, rather than taking large steps, Maria, small baby steps, but ensuring that those baby steps that you're taking, whatever area in your life may be, are consistent steps. Because if you're doing small baby steps over time, you will have that compound effect of growth. So I hope that helps.
Maria, I hope that has answered your question. I saw you giving her a heart, so I know she probably touched something that's resonated with you. She says yes, thank you. Any other question? Or we're so overwhelmed that we've had so much to go think about. Personally, I do. So she's called for some introspection, right? And we have time for reflection for the last 6 months to do better as we go ahead. If no one is speaking, I would just like to say, Maria, thank you for that really thoughtful question. And to Toju, thank you again for your candid response and guidance on the subject. And with that, I would segue to the feedback and evaluation segment. I think it was Peter Drucker that said, what gets measured gets managed, or gets improved rather. And the only way we can do better is if we know what we ought to do better. So this is the part where I would like people to come off mute and of course, if you're shy and you don't want to do that, you could use the chat box. Okay. I see a comment in the chat that says many people create great strategies but struggle with execution due to procrastination. What's your advice for turning plans into actions?
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Procrastination, yes. Procrastination is one of those things that no matter how prepared you are or how skilled you feel you are, you will have that come up from time to time. And for me personally, what I tend to do is I tend to have a time limit. I'll give you 3. By the end of 3, I'm ensuring that I move. Because what tends to happen is when we take that physical movement of doing, like I said, in this case, I'm using an example of physically coming downstairs, just physically moving. By the time you're able to count 1, 2, 3 and go, and I get to the office, what tends to happen is because I'm here, I'm able to carry on with what it is I need to do. I'm able to carry on with what I need to do. And then also turning plans into actions. In terms of being realistic with your plans is very, very important. I know I mentioned this at the start, whereby when we have plans and goals, we can be very vague with them, right? So if you're not breaking them down into the most minute detail, and you're not preparing properly, when you now start to put the plans and you're trying to turn it into action, you can get overwhelmed by it. You can get overwhelmed by it. So for instance, I'm going to use the example again of the tailor that wants to, the tailor's plan is to sell 100 boo-boos. He's been talking about this plan to sell it, but he hasn't thought of how much it will cost him to even buy the materials, how much it will cost him maybe to hire someone to sew it, how much it will cost him. He wants to expand this business to Lagos and possibly to export. how much it will cost him, the logistical aspect of it. So if he has not taken time to set out these things, to plan properly, I guarantee you he will procrastinate when he tries to start it because he will be overwhelmed. So my advice is ensuring that you're able to practicalize, put these things down, do the research, put figures to ideas that you have in terms of monetary figures, right? Determine the skill sets that you require. So if you don't have it, you know you're going to go and get the skill sets. So making sure that your plan is actionable and practical would help overcome that procrastination that you may have.
All right, thank you, Toju. Sure, Oniza, she hasn't responded, of course you can always touch base outside of here. There's another question here that says, if mindset has great impact on achieving our goals, how do we ensure to get the right mindset?
Mindset. Mindset really is your thoughts, right? Your thoughts, your values, your belief. So something as simple as you are mindful of what you take in. As simple as that, you're mindful of what you take in. For instance, what information you process, right? In terms of social media, in terms of your friends, in terms of the environment you interact in, what are you feeding your mind? Because what you get in is what you're going to give out. So being mindful of ensuring that you have the right mindset in terms of the information you're pondering on, the thoughts that you're having, the people you surround yourself with, and then also when you have an urge, because what tends to happen is that the mind will always, or your inner man will always nudge you. When you have those nudges, for instance, it might say, you want to do this thing, are you sure that you are ready for it? When you hear a thought like that, ponder further. What do you mean by am I ready for it? Is it a skill set that I need to have? What am I lacking? So asking, in order for you to get answers, you need to ask the right questions. And when you ask the right questions, it will help align you to the right mindset that you need to have in order for you to progress.
Okay, thank you for that. And the last one here is, I often hear people say that when you talk about your goals, you're less likely to achieve them. Would you say there's some psychological truth or to that, or maybe a limiting belief? And the second one, piggybacking on that, is would you advise an ambitious person to keep his or her goals to himself or herself, at least until they achieve them?
Well, there are a lot of, I would say there are varying school of thoughts on that. If, for instance, you talk to the older generation or someone who's a bit more traditional, they say, okay, and there might still be wisdom in that, in terms of what has not come to fruition yet. If you are talking about it, it may seem as if you are speaking about what it is that you want to do when you haven't really taken action. And you have individuals, setting school of thought, that will say, oh, if you're talking about it, somebody else will hear your idea and they will hear your idea, they'll run with it, they'll go and do it and all that. You have all of that. But I'm a strong believer of there's enough to go around in terms of abundance. There's enough to go around. If you're able to plan properly, execute properly, derive the right skill set that you need in order for you to be able to accomplish your goals, you talking about it to someone would not necessarily spoil the goal. But then it also has to do with your person. You have individuals that when they talk about things, it can fuel them. It can motivate them. Like the fact that I have put this out in the public domain, like, pardon my language, I can't fold my hand. Oh my goodness, I have to make sure I do this. I've told this person I have to do it. And then you can have another individual with a different temperament that by saying it out and telling someone about it, there's that extra pressure there's that extra pressure to perform. And that extra pressure can lead to anxiety. You're anxious, like, oh my goodness, what if I fail? What if I fail? What if I fail? So you have to be aware of what sort of person you are. And there's wisdom in taking time, right? Allowing your goals to incubate, allowing your goals to sit, marinate, do the work, acquire the skill, do the research, do all the stuff that you need to do, and then you implement. There's also wisdom in that. All right. So it's for you to assess which category you fall into and what works best with you. But the main thing is ensuring that if you put in the work, you're diligent, and you do what you're supposed to do, don't be afraid that because I would say it, that will lead to my goals being sabotaged. So it's really, what's the motive behind you saying it out or not saying it out?
All right. Thank you so very kindly. We've overshot our time significantly. If I have the permission of everyone on this call to just take the very last one that says, can a scarcity mindset exist without material scarcity? Is blaming poverty on cognition a eugenicist dog whistle?
Can a scarcity mindset exist without material scarcity? Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Tying it back to the mind, tying it back to our thoughts. If even when you have abundance around you in terms of your basic needs, you have food, you have shelter, you have love, all of those things, like Maslow's law of provision, that you need to be able to strive as an individual. But if you still feel, for instance, you feel unworthy, you can have it all, but yet you still feel unworthy and you are not even able to bask and appreciate what you have. That's you adopting a scarcity mentality because you're not able to even enjoy what you have. And then also being mindful of your thoughts is so crucial. The mind is our engine. You know, everything that you do starts from the mind. Everything that you do starts from the mind. So in every situation, like any situation you find yourself in, how are you analyzing it? Are you going in having a hopeful attitude towards it? I would always say try and be as hopeful as you can, because what's the alternative? If you're not hopeful, you not being hopeful is not going to achieve anything, but you being hopeful can have physiological impact on your body in terms of it releasing dopamine and ensuring that you're happy and you're motivated. So scarcity mentality does not have to do with only the material thing. It also has to do with your mind, your thoughts, your belief system, your value system, how that impacts how you think.
Thank you, Toju. And I think we'll call it a wrap for the Q&A here. And it's back to you, Abdul Hakim.
Right. Thank you for that moderation. Let me start with you first. The smile, the composure, the connecting words from the start till the end. You were nothing short of amazing. So thank you very much. And to our speaker this evening, I told you she was fire. And you see, it was nothing short of excellent. This is what she embodies. Thank you very much. Thank you for doing justice to the theme for this month. So let's see your faces. I'm taking that screenshot. Bless. So let's see more faces. If your face is not here yet, you might be wrong. Aha, Maria. Thank you. Let's enjoy the rest of our evening and your day if you're on the other side of time. So thank you and have a great night rest from this side.